Welcome to On the Edge. Today's guest is Juliette Jeffers. Juliette is an actress, writer, and director. Just recently, she worked on The Residents, Tulsa King, and Found. Welcome to the show, Juliette.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so The Residents. It's
hmm
Shonda Rhimes' new show. Is there
Yes.
anything that you can talk about without, getting in trouble?
Well, I mean, I can talk about what's already out there. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Okay.
It's a White House murder mystery. It's got a little bit of drama, a little bit of comedy,
Mm-hmm.
and the actors are amazing. They got some high caliber stuff there. Great actors, and it was interesting because they we did 4 episodes before the strike, and then we shut down.
Okay.
And when we did those first 4 episodes, Andre Brower was in it.
Oh,
And yeah, and so unfortunately, as you know, he passed away. Um and uh so I the producers and Netflix, everybody, they were trying to figure out what to do, how to finish the next 4, what to do, and all that. So they eventually decided to replace Andre with Giancarlo Esposito.
oh,
Yes. And so it was a bittersweet moment for me, because of course I was excited to work with Andre,
mhm.
and got to know him a bit as well. Uh, and so a part of me was just like, no, let's like let this be his last project, and like, try and
Yeah.
make it work. Um, but but they decided to, so that we reshot the scenes that Andre was in,
Okay.
and then shot the last 4 episodes recently. Well, earlier this year.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, Giancarlo is amazing as well. So
Is
I
he?
just feel I'm really grateful that I got to work with both of them.
Yes. Did Andre share like any secrets or tips or like how he gets to where he is in acting? Like, did he share anything with you?
He told me a little bit about, his background, and and how he got into acting,
Mm.
which I don't know if you know, he went to Juilliard. Uh, yeah, and it's interesting because I found out a friend of mine was in his class at Juilliard,
Oh,
and so
wow.
she shared, when he passed away, she shared some footage of them, in a play or two, and
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, as you can probably tell, he has this dry sense of humor, because actually, when I first met him, I was kind of like, like he took a second to warm up, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Um, but he just has this like kind of quiet, laid back essence. Um, but then he'd say something really hilarious, and you're like, oh, okay, okay,
Kind of
Um,
catch you off guard.
yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Wow.
he was great.
That's really sweet.
Mhm.
Okay. And also, you are currently shooting Tulsa King. Is that right?
Well, we just wrapped
Okay.
a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
and that was, so I did an episode in the first season, and so then they invited me back for the second season, and I did 5 episodes. My first episode is going to be the second episode.
Mhm.
I'm
Can
excited.
you tell us about the show because it's Sylvester Stallone's show for those that don't know. Can you just tell us
Yes,
a little bit
yes.
about
It's
the show?
basically, Sylvester Stallone's character went to prison for 25 years. He was a mobster, and he gets out, and his people said, hey, why don't you go to Oklahoma, and start new, start fresh. And he goes to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and decides to bully his way into starting a mob there with the least mob looking people that you would expect,
Mm.
right? And so he forms this little mob in Tulsa, and takes over. Yeah, so
Sounds interesting. Have you
it's
had any scenes with him?
I did not in the first season, but in this second season that you're going to see, I had, I guess, 3 scenes with him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was, of course, you're working with Rambo, like, you're working with a legend. And so that was really cool.
Mhm.
And he was kind of like, he kind of is how he seems to be. You know what I mean? Like, meaning, like, he's very, he's got that East Coast vibe,
Uh-huh.
and just real, like, down to earth, you know.
That's really cool. My next question for you is, do you ever get nervous on your first day when you go to a new show? Do you get nervous on your first day of shooting?
Almost always. Like,
Really?
almost always. Yeah, still. I mean, I started in this industry in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and but you know what? It's more like excitement. But as you know, like, excitement and fear sort of act the same way in the body, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So sometimes the body doesn't recognize which one is which, right? So
Okay.
you get the butterflies and all that, but you're excited, right? And but yes, there's natural nerves that happen. I mean, even when I perform live on stage, I feel like they say that, if you don't have those butterflies, you're not alive, you know. And for me, yes, I get them, but then it instantly goes away, like, once I'm there. It's
Mm-hmm.
the build up to it. That's what it is. It's the build up to it, that, because, of course, like, in your mind, oh, am I going to remember all my lines, and all of that. But then once I'm on set, it's like, shh.
You just
Oh. you know
do you have a process to help yourself to relax and just get in the groove of being that character that you're portraying?
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's an emotional scene,
Mm-hmm.
then I really have to take my time, get in that corner that I need to be in, in my trailer, or just, while I'm on set, in a corner, just doing my thing. I recently worked on a show where, in the room where they had all the actors, like the little holding area, um, a lot of the crew, they were in that area, helping one particular actor, and talking and doing all this stuff, and I was like, I need to focus. So I
Mm-hmm.
literally just got out of the room, and I found a corner somewhere, and just, did my thing. And so I do a lot of deep breathing. uh, that helps. Do, like, warm up exercises. So physically, I'll do some stuff in my trailer before I go out, if I have
Okay.
time. So that helps to ground me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's good. I know that you went to the now famous performing arts school in New York,
Yes.
where Fame actually they did they shoot there or they shot outside? I can't remember which one it
Well,
is.
both. I mean, yes, they shot at that actual school that I went to.
Mhm.
And so what was really cool is that when I did go to the school, I was like, because, of course, I saw the film, and then when I actually went to the school, I was like, oh my God, there's that, like, it felt so surreal. And the dancing on the cars and all that, they didn't
Yes.
really do that. That just we didn't do that. We didn't
Okay.
do that in school, you know.
Not at all?
Not at all. No dancing on cars. There was none of that. We danced in the lunchroom. We did do that,
Love it. Love it.
but not on top of cars.
Okay. Well, what made you fall in love with acting?
I guess I always I go back to, I just remember with my family watching Carol Burnett,
Oh, wow.
and I just loved the idea of moving people, whether it's through laughter, tears,
Mm-hmm.
just having someone, think about something. I loved the idea of doing it through acting. And And I was always, I guess, there was a part of me, believe it or not, that was a little shy as a kid. But I also, once I got to know you, I was just silly. Like I was always silly. I was always playing characters,
Mhm.
mocking people. Um, so it was, and then I danced. I was a dancer as well. I grew up as a dancer. And
Mhm.
so I was the one that, like, when I danced, I was always like performing, where like, just, smiling and looking at the audience and all of that. So I always loved connecting with the audience as well. So I feel like I was a natural, and I knew, like, I mean, when you go to performing arts high school as a freshman, you're 14 years old and you think that you're going to be a star, right? And you don't know anything about the real world out there, but all you know is that acting is fun and you enjoy it. And it was great. It was the best high school to go to.
So you started off performing. You probably came out the womb performing,
Yeah,
dancing. Do you
exactly.
do you sing as well?
I don't, which is interesting because my mother sang, my
Mhm.
father sang, uh, and it's sort of, I don't know. I mean, I can keep a tune, and I love to sing. Like I'll sing in my car, in the shower, you know. I sing when nobody's listening, but
Yes.
I wouldn't dare do it in front of people.
That's funny. I love that. I love that. Have you ever worked with a difficult actor or director? And if you have, how do you handle that?
So yes, there was a situation where there was, now this particular actor wasn't being difficult with me, but
Hmm.
it was one of those things where everyone was walking on eggshells around him, and so it was a very tense set.
Oh,
And so what I did was I just did my work, which is what I do anyway.
okay.
But it was one of those things where I felt like I had to be uber focused,
Hmm.
uber professional, um, prepared, and make sure that I got my lines all down. And and what I did is I also gave, when I was working one on one with this particular actor, I gave him something different each time, so I kept it fresh, you
Hmm.
know, and that's how I dealt with it. And obviously, I'm not going to say the name of
Yes.
this actor, but I feel like it made a difference. It made a difference. I think that he respected me because I was also not, at least I wasn't acting starstruck, or like, oh my God, like I wasn't walking on tiptoe, on eggshells around
Mhm.
him. I wasn't doing that. I was just there to do the work.
You were there to do the work. Stay in the
Hmm.
art, stay focused.
Exactly.
Exactly. Now, what about a director?
No, thank God.
Oh,
Every
that's
director that I've worked with um, has been great. No difficulties. Thank God.
Do the directors ever guide you to where they want you to be, or you come in, you have your direction, you have where you want this character to go? Like, do they ever basically direct you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm open to it.
Hmm.
Of course, as an actor, you come in, you've got to bring something to the
Right.
table, right?
Hmm.
You do your work, you prep, and you bring something to the table. And I think directors respect that.
Hmm.
That you come in. They always say it's better to make a wrong choice than no choice at all, right? And so you make your choices, and then if it's not the direction, usually because you've auditioned for it, it's usually the direction that they want to go in,
Hmm.
but then I love the directors who, if you have the time, because of course in TV you go a little faster than like if it were film, but who let you kind of play, right? And so if you tried a few ways, and then they'll be like, okay, well, just, I don't know, give me one, give me whatever, just
Hmm.
do something different and make it your own. I love that because then it really, and sometimes, I mean, they'll have you do that when you first start too,
Okay.
and then they'll be like, okay, yeah, that's great, but can you do it this way? You know what I mean? So yeah, so like I said, I'm grateful that I've had directors who have been pretty easygoing and never really had an issue.
That's great because you've been around for quite some time now. I mean, you've done theater, you've done TV, you've done commercials. I mean, you've been in the game for quite some time. What advice would you give to actors today in today's business? Because today's business is different than it was when you came in. What
Yeah,
advice would you give?
it is. Well, one of the things for me is I've always been this kind of person, and even in my personal life, where, I'm not going to sit around and wait for the phone to ring, right?
Mhm.
And so if things are slow, I'm creating, I'm doing my own thing. And so that's how I ended up writing and performing 5 different one person shows, or solo plays. Um, because when things were down, I needed to do something. And so I
Right.
created. And so now, yes, there's that world of the solo play world. That's an
Hmm.
option. But now today, there's so many. I mean, you can just pick up your iPhone and shoot a movie. So many people are doing their own content. And so I would definitely recommend, especially if you don't have um, a demo reel, if you haven't done any work, is that catch 22. They don't want to hire you unless you've done work, but how do you get work if they don't hire you? So create your own stuff,
Hmm.
create. That's my advice. Keep it. And the other thing is that a lot of people, acting doesn't stop just because you're not working on set, right? Like, you always should be working on your craft.
Right.
And so if you're not working, then either you're creating something or you're in class,
Hmm.
right? That I just suggest always keep, because it's a muscle, right?
Right.
It's similar to exercising. If you
Hmm.
don't exercise, your muscles are going to get weak, and and you're not going to be your strong self, right? You're not going to be fit. Same
Right.
thing with acting. You have to continue to exercise. People think that you could just wake up and read some
Yeah.
lines and you're good to go.
Yeah.
You know this, right? I know you're always in class, in
Yes,
between your
always.
gigs.
Hmm. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's a muscle.
hmm
So you work as a teaching artist.
hmm
What led you to teach?
So I would say two things. One is I was looking for a way to make some extra money, right?
Mhm.
And it was about what am I good at? What do I know? Right? I know acting. And just because you know acting doesn't mean you can teach. That's for
Right.
sure. But
Hmm.
but I always want to share what I experience. And especially in the solo show world, coaching actors. And so when I experienced that feeling of empowerment after doing my first solo play, I was like, I want other actors to feel this. And it's
Wow.
it's feeling empowered, but it's also healing on so many levels, especially
Yeah.
if it's an autobiographical piece,
Mhm.
it could be so healing. And so I wanted others to feel that as well. And I always share this story about, when I see my actors come off stage after they've performed their one
Mhm.
person show for the first time, the joy that's emanating from them, is so priceless. And I just love seeing that. I love seeing that. It's like I said, priceless. Um, so I get joy from teaching. It's something that I'm very passionate about. And you know I feel like it's my gift. It's something that I'm called to do for sure.
Mhm. Mhm. Where have you taught? Any
so
place?
so I've taught in New York City.
Mhm.
in Harlem, Brooklyn, uh, and I've also taught in LA here. I've taught
Mhm.
in prisons and jails, uh,
Really?
acting and writing, and that experience was really profound. I did it for about 4 years on and off,
Wow.
and you know, female facilities, male facilities, both.
Mm.
Uh, yeah.
That is impressive. Has anybody gotten out of jail and gone on to act in any shows or theater or that you know of?
Not that I know. I mean, there's one artist who started pursuing it, but I haven't been in touch with him, so I don't know what he's doing now, but I know he was definitely interested.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was an interesting thing because we worked in, you know, high level security prisons where we're basically dealing with gangbangers,
Oh,
lifers,
yes.
and these, what I loved about it, so many things I loved about it, but one of the things I loved is that you have, you know, because it's very segregated inside, right? You know, the African Americans stay here, the Latinos here. It's, you know, it's very
Really?
segregated, and so what I loved was that they came together, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, and if they're separated on the outside in the yard, inside they're not, right? They have to work together, and so sometimes you see a little hesitancy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um but but they have to work together. So it's one of those things where, like, oh yeah, we cool in here, but when we get outside, you know, we gotta play
Gosh.
it off, you know, right? Yeah, there was this one artists. We call them artists, you know, because that's what they are
Yes.
when they're in our class.
Mm-hmm.
And they this one dude was like, uh, he almost didn't want to perform because we put on a show at the end, you know, and he almost didn't want to perform because he didn't want his boys outside to see him doing this acting stuff, you
Yeah.
know, and it was one of those things where we were like, you know, he didn't show up and we're like, what's going on? But then he finally came, you know. So it was, I mean, it was literally like a movie, you know. You know what I mean? Like we were like, oh, he's not gonna come, and then he came last minute, like, all right, I'm here, let's go, let's do it, you know. So
Wow.
yeah.
That sounds really, really cool.
Hmm.
I can't even imagine how you even got there. Like, how did you get to that point?
Well, you know, um, so I was nervous before I went in. I mean, it was, first of all, it was like I saw the opportunity. I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw that they were hiring, and I said, and it was something that I was curious about. I knew a friend of mine who used to go inside to teach poetry, and
Hmm.
um, and so I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. But there was something about me that was like, I'm really interested. And
Hmm.
so the night before I went, uh, yeah, it was like starting school, you know, the first day of school kind of thing, and I had those jitters. But but then as soon as I got inside, it was like, man, these are my brothers, these are my sisters, you know,
So you
and
felt connected in
oh
some
my
way.
god, so connected, because I was like, this could be my nephew, this could be my cousin, this could be, you know, my friend that I grew up with,
Hmm.
this could be me, you know. I
Right.
mean, there was a female who, you know, we had been working together for a few weeks, and we taught class, and then we were getting ready to leave, and she comes up to me and she goes, excuse me, do you go to Agape? You know, which is a church that I go to. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, yeah, I used to sing on the choir.
Oh,
And that
wow.
hit me, man.
Yeah.
Oof. It hit me because I don't know her story. We don't ask, you know, I don't know her story. But it just goes to show you that you never know who will end up inside. And I know before I went inside, I always was like, oh, them, those people, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then now I'm like, oh, no, no, no,
No,
no, they're my people.
everybody's got a story, you know? That gave me goosebumps
Hmm.
knowing you could have seen her the week before at Agape, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah.
Agape. is we don't call it a church, but it's just like a spiritual center here in
Mhm.
LA for those that don't know about agape.
Yes.
How did the partnership with the Nevis government come about to help them build up their film industry?
So my dad was born in Nevis. St. Kitts and Nevis is they're sister islands in the Eastern Caribbean, and my mother was born in Montserrat but raised in St. Kitts, and my dad was born and raised in Nevis.
Hmm.
And my dad um, wanted to be an actor when he was younger, and so he was very creative. He wrote plays, he wrote poetry, he sang, he played guitar, he
Wow.
acted. He just very creative. So hence there's me. I got it all from him.
Yes.
And he was a cook, so there you go. Um so um i uh so the so a part of me, I remember one trip I went with to Nevis with my dad, and we we went to my cousin's. That's what it was. We went to my cousin's school, where she taught, and I just saw the kids running around, and I don't know, I just had this feeling. I said, one day I want to come back and I want to teach kids. That's what I was thinking first. I want to teach kids some acting. I want to do some play with them. And then um one of my cousins used to be the deputy to the premier there. Shout out to Alexis Jeffers. And I just talked to him. I said, I have this idea. And at that point I was thinking adults, because, oh, that's what it was. I heard that there was a production company out of England that came into Nevis to shoot a few films. This is during the pandemic. And and I know that they put some of the locals in the films, but they kind of had small roles. And I thought to myself, no, I want them to have bigger parts. I want them to, like, be leads in the films. And that's where that idea came from, where I said, okay, well, first let's get them some acting.
Hmm.
And so I started with teaching acting, but I have so many other plans, to make them, have a mark in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you have a number one secret or tip? Like, can you give us three tips that you teach your actors?
Ah,
I know
uh,
that's a hard one because there's so many, but
there's so many. I know. How do you? I would say one is, huh, don't act. Right? Like, to be or not to be, you know, like, don't act. You've heard acting is being,
yeah,
so just
just
be. Just be. Even
mhm,
even on the stage, because theater acting, of course, tends to be bigger than film acting. But just because you're bigger doesn't mean that you can't be real. You can't come from a real place,
right.
right? And
Hmm.
so, I mean, the only reason that you're bigger in theater is so that the person in the back row can hear you and understand what's going on, and and see your emotions. But
Hmm.
they still have to be based in something real.
Right.
So that's number one. Don't act.
Okay.
um Number two would be, don't be afraid to go there. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't
Hmm.
be afraid to, some, I've heard someone say that they don't like the way they look when they cry. So
Hmm.
they're being, self-conscious of what they
Hmm.
look like. And
Hmm.
it's like, no, no, no. If you're really connected to what you're doing, then that shouldn't matter.
That
You
Viola
know,
Davis.
Viola Davis not. Yes. Hello. you know, she don't care. And she's
No,
Viola. So,
that was
so
number two.
that's
Okay.
number two. Okay, so let me think about what three would be. This is good because I didn't actually think about this, before, to narrow it down to three. So I said don't act, don't be
Mhm.
afraid to go there and be vulnerable. And then number three would be, oh, oh. and this is kind of connected, but don't don't be result oriented.
Oh, yes.
Right. So if you think about, I mean, I'll give you a great story. I had
Mhm,
an audition for Grey's Anatomy,
mhm.
and I remember when I walked out of the audition, I was like, oh man, I wanted to cry, and I didn't
Oh,
cry. I was thinking that to myself, and I ended up getting the part, and and I said to myself, so it's not always about crying. It's like in the scene, my best friend, who was Kim Whitley, who played the role, she dropped dead, and we didn't realize that she was bleeding internally, and
oh,
so
wow.
she dropped dead. And so like I said in the audition,
Mhm,
I felt the emotion,
mhm.
right? Clearly I was doing my work and I felt the emotion, but tears didn't come down. And here's the thing. I think us, we as actors, and I admit it myself, I love to cry. Like I love to cry, okay? And so and so but I think some of us have this twisted kind of belief that people always cry when something emotional happens,
Mhm.
right? But in real life, I mean, if somebody finds out that somebody that they love dies, sometimes you don't cry right away.
Right,
You're in shock,
right. Mhm.
or whatever, but the tears don't necessarily come right away.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, so don't be uh connected to the results.
Those are some really good tips.
Hmm.
I appreciate that wholeheartedly. Is there an actor or actress that you just really want to work with?
Well, we just called her name,
Oh,
Viola.
yes.
Viola
Yes.
Davis. Yeah, I love her work, and I read her book, and I love her story, and
Mhm.
and the work that she's put into getting to where she is, and her morals. So I'm just loving her as a person. I've never met her, but from what I see, I'm loving her as a person. And every time she gives an acceptance speech, I'm always like,
Yes.
like it's coming. She's so articulate
Mhm.
and eloquent as she speaks, and it's always a lesson. It's right.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, so I would love to work with her and play.
I love that. So let's manifest that for Juliette Jeffers to work with Viola Davis.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
love
it's
that.
coming. It's
Love
coming.
that. Yes.
Okay, so aside from acting, what do you like to do in your downtime? Do you cook? Do you like to travel?
Well, yes, and yes. I love to do both. As I mentioned, my dad was a cook, and
Mhm.
so I got that gene. Love to experiment in the kitchen. Like if people say, "Oh, what's your specialty?" I mean, of course, Caribbean food, because
Yeah.
that's I was born eating that, and learned how to make, cook at a young age. And but I love to experiment, like if there's something that I try in a restaurant, I'm like, oh, I think there's basil in that, there's that, so I try to remake it at home,
Okay.
um so yes, I love to cook, travel. But something that I just did this weekend that I'm really excited about is I just became a certified sound healer.
Oh,
So I learned how to play all the singing bowls and the gongs, and
okay.
yes, this thing.
Yeah.
I own one here. I do have one because I used to go to a lot of sound baths, and I just wanted to own one. And
Mhm.
but now I want to get more. Ooh, I want to get more.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. It definitely does something to your soul. The sound of the bowl. Yeah, the vibration of it all, right?
Yes, it's so healing. It's so healing,
Yes.
and I'm excited to dive into that
Mm,
more.
it sounds exciting. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear how it goes for you.
Yes.
You look absolutely amazing. You're glowing
Oh,
off the page. What is your beauty regime? Do you have specific products that you like to use, or is
you
it just
know,
that good Caribbean skin?
it's that Caribbean skin, Like I can't even take credit because I could say, "Oh, I drink a lot of water." I do drink. I don't drink enough water, but
Hmm.
that's really all I drink. Like I might do a smoothie, I might do a vegetable juice, but I don't drink a lot of juices because there's just too much sugar.
Hmm.
Um, and I definitely don't drink soda. So I that's all I drink is water.
Yeah.
And I find it when I started eating a lot more avocado, like I almost eat avocado. I eat avocado probably almost every day. And when I
Hmm.
started doing that, I started getting more compliments on my skin. So I could attribute some of it to that. But other
Hmm.
than that, if you see pictures of my mom, her mother, their skin was flawless. And so, like I said, I can't take credit.
So there's not one specific beauty product that you use that you've
I
got.
use, you know what? I use natural stuff. Like I'll use shea butter on my
Uh-huh.
skin, um, jojoba oil,
Okay.
uh, so I tend to use that. I just started using what is it, Black Girl sunscreen.
Oh yeah. Okay. How was that? I wanted to
Yeah.
try it.
I mean, I it's fine. I like it. I just, because someone was like, even though you don't, you should be wearing sunscreen because I
Yes.
never really
Yes.
wore it as a on a regular basis. So
Hmm.
I put the shea butter on and then I put that on over it.
Okay.
Especially now when I'm going out a lot
Hmm.
in the sun. And yeah,
Okay.
that's
That's good.
all. I do a scrub, like a
Hmm.
natural scrub. So sometimes I'll do a facial on myself with the um oh, what is it called? I can't think of what it's called, but it's like the clay, the green
Kaolin
clay.
clay.
It comes in
Kale.
powder form, and you just add water to it, and you make a mask. You
Uh-huh.
get it from Whole Foods.
Like a
So
kale clay, I think. Kaolin with a
it's
K.
not it's not kale. I can't remember what it
Not
is, but
not kale.
like
Kaolin.
algae or something,
Okay. Okay.
something
All
like
right.
that. Yeah.
That sounds good. That sounds
Mhm.
good. Juliet, this has been such a joy, such a pleasure. I'm so grateful for you to have you on the show. How
Thank
do people
you.
get in touch with you? What are your social media handles?
So Juliette Jeffers at Juliette Jeffers everywhere, and my website is julietjeffers.com. And yeah, that's how you get in touch with me.
Awesome. And your website is amazing. I love the layout of it all. It's clean, it's bright, it's fresh, and it's easy to maneuver around. I really enjoyed
Thank
your website.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I may have to steal that format.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I know a girl. I'll give you her info.
Okay. All right, Juliet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.